Good evening, and welcome to another edition of African Americans Ain't Africans, the Think Show that proves without a shadow of a doubt that the so called African American didn't find their way to America in the trunk of a ship. I'm your host, the Indigenous One. Send this one out, share this with your friends, send it out, make it go viral, because this is very important. And we're going to show you the differences on how these manifestations happen and what do they do to the people that they're directed at. We're going to talk about this identity change. You'll notice in the so called Black community, African American community, whatever you want to do, their designations change every generation or so. Now, if you're hearing this kind of stuff for the first time, don't, just give it a chance because most people who call themselves Black, African Americans, or whatever don't know who they are. They don't have a reference. They're not connected to anything but what somebody else's say. That's all. And we're going to show that with these designated name changes. We're not going to go back far. We're not going to go back all the way because they'll get too muddled. Just know that this is the playbook that is always played. And the African American, Black, colored Negro always facilitates the playbook. That's why the generations that come, it's hard for them to get through because the people who helped build it, their parents and grandparents, it, that's the most help you need. You don't see ants working against each other. You don't see birds flying in the sky fighting and killing each other. You don't see the natural elements working against each other. The only natural element that works against each other is the Negro because he was trained that way. And one of the ways he's trained, and we're going to put this like training a dog, and you'll see it right off the bat. Some of you will bitch and whine and cry, but this is what happens. So we're not going to go back that far. We're just going to go back as far as Negro, Black, African American, and now the new designation is going to be foundational Black Americans. Notice how that word Black is still in there. We'll get to that when we get to that part. Negro, Black, African American, foundational Black Americans. Now, you can probably already see that it's leading to somewhere. So, when the term Black was used, what happened to the Black people? Let's take, I'm sorry, not Black. When the word Negro was used to describe the people, what time period was that? 1900s, 1930 to 1960? That may not be it. That may not be it, but it's close. 1930. We're going to have a new Thunder join us. He's going to tell you about this name change. But somebody stick a pin in it, hit me back to jump back on this, because this is going to blow you away. A new Thunder, what's happening, brother? Oh, he disappeared. We'll get to him when he gets in. So the term Negro was mainly used from 1930 to 1960. When the term Negro was in use, the people born in that time frame, that's what they knew. That's what they were taught. Coming out the womb, that's what they taught the Negro. Here goes a new Thunder right now. Here goes a new Thunder.
How are you, my friend? How's everything going?
What's going on, homie?
Good,
Hey,
good.
man, I really appreciate you coming on to explain this because people need to know this. I know it'll go ignored by most, but we just want to record that it has been put out there. Your take on the word or the term or whatever you want to say it, FBAs. Going into the future, you were talking about 2030 or something. What does that term, foundational Black Americans, what does it set the people up for? How will it be used in the future?
Foundational Black Americans, that's going to be another way of, how can I say, changing your designation, your name. Back in 2016, we did an interview and I said that we are the last generation. This will be one of the last generations where they're going to be changing the names of us as original people of what we now call the Americas. So this foundational Black American garbage, and I have to say it's garbage, um, it's just another term such as Negro. Negro, again, was synonymous of changing the name from what they called an Indian, which again they made up, um, putting you in a framework or in a designation of somebody who was related to a slave from quote unquote Africa. And then they came down to that term black. Then they went into um, Negro, African American, Afro American, everything other than what you are. We're the only pretty much race of people on the what they would call a race of people on the face of the earth. To change the designation of their identity so many different times, and they had to do that because of the reset that had happened back in the 1700s. Some people say that it actually began to happen, or they began this reset around 1776. But this FBA, Foundational Black America, whatever you want to call yourself, whatever you want to call it, is just another reset term for them going forward, because they again had already put out, and we talked about this again, probably about 2017, 2018, that between 2030 and 2050, that the so-called Black Americans' wealth, African American wealth, would be zero combined. Now, remember back in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s.
Now, when you say zero, you mean everybody just gonna have lint in their pocket?
That's right. That's right. That's what I like. If you remember back in the, all these, Black Power movement, how we have Black economics and how we're worth all this money, and how Black people they sorry about that, but they how can I say, they said that we had like $900 billion worth of economic, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And the bottom line is that in their system, and again, we're in their system. They took us out of our system, and we're in their system. So in their system, we are worth zero. We were always worth nothing. We were just here to train them how to emulate the soul. That's the only thing that we were good for them for. How to emulate the energy upon which we have with inside of ourselves that they can try to gather and capture. Because remember, these people that have given you this name, they just got here. They're new to this earth. They're new to what the so-called paradigm that we exist in. They're new. This is the reason why they're always looking for something. I mean, take the pyramids, for example. Take the pyramids. They didn't even know the pyramids existed pretty much in the 1700s, right? They stumbled upon it, and what did they see? They seen a few caps and started digging it out. Now, who told them it was there? What was going on at that particular time was a whole entire war, but that's a whole nother ballgame. But the thing is that these people just got here, and all this stuff is new to them. That's why they don't know anything. That's why everything to them is brand new. The Catholic Church knew that there was a lot of stuff going on when they began to start repopulating and coming over here and doing everything that we had to, doing everything that they had to do to take our land. That's why they said that this is the new world, and they didn't want anything dealing with quote unquote the old world. So this is the reason why 90% of the things that they found, they either burned, completely destroyed, or threw into the ocean. And when you take a look at this, with this new population that just got here, and yes, they're a new population. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about, and these people been here for at least 6,000 years, whatever. Yeah, the Tamahu have been here for at least 6,000 years. And you have to go back and you have to say to yourself, what were these people called before they invented that word white? And why was that word white invented in the first place? See, they had to change their designation in order to get away from what they truly are when they found out what they were. Especially when the proof came out back in about the 1814s. Well, not the about the early 1800s, around between 1810 1820, when they began to start deciphering the hieroglyphs in the cavernous caves over there in Seti One, the temples over there in quote unquote Egypt, if that's where they really deciphered them, because the so-called Temple of Seti One was destroyed to the point as to where it took that lady almost 30 years to put it back together again. And why is that so important? Because that's exactly where they found out what their origins were all about, who they are, what they were made of, what they were made from, who brought them
Well, I
to.
think their actions upon the earth, actions upon the earth and the seas, and to the inhabitants of the land, to the animals, to damn near everything. I know what they are. Actions. Isn't it a saying that action speaks louder than words?
It is. And it was the actions of their creation that caused the whole entire mess and this whole entire uh, 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 diaspora of the world upon which we lived in. I mean, some people say, oh, we go by the Ganeshagawa. Do you know why the Ganeshagawa had to be created in the first place? That was the first rule of rules that began to start being put upon this earth. The Ganeshagawa was created because there were a group of people, there were a being of people that were created that didn't know anything about peace and had to be controlled. Before then, there was no Ganeshagawa. There was no great law of peace. There was no need because everything was peaceful. Everything was peaceful. They were not here.
Right.
And then another group of beings came, and they created what I now call the black-headed ones, because it was what Thoth called them. They were the black-headed ones, and created these beings of people, and these were the ones, these were the ones that were created by what they now call what people call the Anunnaki, whatever the situation is. But that's your Bible story. Your Bible story are those black-headed ones that were created, quote unquote, Adam and Eve. That's their creation story.
Yeah, man. But back to the FBAs. What do the FBAs? How do they fit into all of this?
Well, I'm getting into that because this is basically what they're designing themselves after a soulless group of beings that have corrupted and soul scalped their whole entire being. So the foundational black people had to be captured, and again, they're soulfully captured, so that these other beings can take their energy and use their energy to be able to create.
What do you mean by soulfully captured?
So most of the people that you see on this planet here, and just we'll just talk plain. Most of the people that you see on this planet don't have a soul. They don't have a soul. A lot of people don't have what you call an internal thought process. They don't talk to themselves. There's nothing inside of them. In fact, some people, today's day and age, a lot of things that you have to do is really ask somebody, do you talk to yourself? Do you have an internal thought process? Do you think deeply? Do you think most people that you meet now don't do that for
Don't even
several
know what it
reasons?
is.
No, no, and that's why that and this is where we become, when you start reading these ancient texts and they start talking about the soulless ones or the ones that have no being inside of them. Remember when they came here, and again, it wasn't the Tamahu that came here or what you call the white people. It was those black-headed Europeans that came over here starting all that stuff, creating all the things that they created. That's why they call the 13 black colonies. But it was them who first initially came here. Somebody helped them to get here. But those people are most of those don't have, they may have an avatar, but they don't have a soul. That's the reason why they were able to do the wickedness that they were able to do. You have to be a certain type of being to go over there and just gut somebody's body and then eat it. And that's what foundational black people are pairing themselves behind. This is the energy upon which they are now gravitating themselves towards. And this has not just been happening just now. This has been going on for a very long time. It's just that the majority of people who still knew who they were rejected it. They rejected it.
Right.
Back in the late 1800s, they were trying to do all this stuff, send people to Africa and everything like that. 98 to 99% of the people rejected the notions that they were African and that Africa was their homeland because they
Yeah,
still knew who they were.
yeah, man. I was talking to a brother, and he asked me a cold question. I was like, I never asked my grandparents that. I wish I would have. He said, ask your grandparents what did they think of Marcus Garvey.
A lot of the people, and again, just going off just by when they were trying to convince them to return to Africa, 98 plus people, 98% of the people plus refused and said no, they weren't going to have any part of it.
But but like you saying, we don't talk to ourselves. We don't think because you would figure, hey, what was my grandparents? What did my grandparents think of them, or my aunts or my uncles? And that's the direct connection you have. And this is what I try to get the indigenous people here to see. You have a direct connection. You are an extension of your forefathers. Does that make any sense? Just think of an extension cord. The main cord is plugged into the wall. The extension cord is plugged into that cord. That's how you are to your grandmother, grandfathers, uncles, aunts, all these people. And when these people come out and pull the plug and plug you into something else, you become something else. Is that a good way of looking at it? Is that a good way of seeing it?
That is a very good way of seeing it because there's a lot of people who have that extension cord and you're plugged into the oil or you're plugged into your past or whatever you want to say you're plugged into, but then there's breaks in those cords and a
Right,
lot of the energy seeping out.
right, right,
Right. And then what you're plugged into, there's other energy that now can seep into you. So everybody, I mean, one of the first things that you begin to that you have to understand what, quote unquote, the Bible and a lot of these religious things they tell you is you have to look at the beam in your own eye first before you begin to start going out there judging anybody else.
right,
And, and what does that really mean? That means did I lose my soul? Did I lose the very being that I am? Am I still connected to what I was connected to of my forefathers? Because everybody talks about their forefathers, but nobody's acting in the interest of what the forefathers actually represent.
right.
They talk a good game, but they come they become like the religions of Egypt. Every time somebody comes up with an idea, they spawn a new religion. And that's what's happening now. Now the new religion is indigenous.
Right.
And most people, what indigenous really means. In Canada, indigenous only means one thing to the copper-colored race people, and that is that you are a slave that was here longer than the other people, and because of that, you're an indigenous to the population. So we have to constantly keep on rechecking ourselves, thinking to ourselves, looking at ourselves, and not emulating what they put out there. Because people are plugged in. Oh, yeah, they're plugged in. But what they don't realize is that they're plugged in. That cord that they had was severed somewhere along the line or cut, and somebody snuck something in there. Most of the music that we listened to back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, even in the 90s, was infiltrated so bad you don't even realize that a lot of these musicians were playing white music. And you were vibing to that music. But that music was meant for you to be able to vibrate in a certain way. And that's a low dimensional vibration. Then all of a sudden we forgot that word soul and went to spirit. Everybody talks about spirit now. Very little do you hear people talking about soul, even people that are supposed to be, quote unquote, religious. Aboriginal, Christians, Muslims, whatever. You hardly hear anybody talk about soul before it was all about the soul. That was sucked out of most people. So now you have to, everybody, I don't care who you are, but everybody has to begin to start looking internally. They say, where is this fight? There is no fight. It's an internal process that you have to look in order for you not to lose what you are. Yes, we most likely, if we don't do what we have to do now, are the last generation. And they prove that to you every generation. They begin to start changing your name. They get you further and further away from what you are. You talk about that all the time.
Simultaneously, while they're doing that, they're also decimating the thing, because this whole homosexual thing is coming up and in, and you can be what you want. You can do whatever you want to do. But homo means one, sexual means sex. You have to have two sexes to continue the bloodlines. And for some reason, many of us jump into that way of thinking and being, and we arrogant about it. You are ending your bloodline. I mean, this is simple thinking. You don't even, this is simple thinking. And we're so arrogant and proud of wiping ourselves out. Not everybody's into it though. And I'm saying if you're around that type of lifestyle, beware in the future where that's going to, because it's going into what Anu was talking about. Okay, Anu.
Yeah, I mean, 100% correct, because what happens is that when you begin to start looking at all of these things and you start talking about how they're wiping us out, they're wiping out our mindset. A great barometer was the election of Barack Obama, right? People brought into that garbage. First black president. I mean, what an embarrassment. He wasn't even quote unquote black. He wasn't even a made up black. He was a made up something else. He was a Nigerian white guy. And everybody ran to him.
Oh, oh God.
But everybody ran to him as though that's me, because that's how white out the mind is. That's how soul scalped you are. That's how deep they got into your psyche, your soulful being. The other barometer was, and this is embarrassing, was Carmela, whatever you want to call her. Another person who came up and she says, I'm going to be whatever you want me to be. Yeah, I'm black. She had nothing to do with the black community other than throwing a whole bunch of males in jail for as long as they can. And she was trying to wipe them out of Los Angeles, California, wherever she was attorney general of. California.
Oh my God.
Right? I mean, and you look at how many, I mean, again, this tells you about when you talk about the sexual aspect of our being. There is not one female that you can ever trust again that supported Kamala Harris. Why is that? Because if you were so into protecting your people, you wouldn't be so into protecting somebody who was trying to destroy him.
Man, say that again, because we do stuff, and then when it shows itself what you've done, then we try to lie and get up out of it. This is what we do. Everybody that comes to your face like they're there to help you, they don't. They don't. It's never happened.
That's right.
And we don't get that yet.
It's insane because we're the only being of people on the planet that ever gave, and I'm talking about as a male, gave our counterparts as a female the proper respect of being what they are. No other being of people on the planet ever did that. If you ever, I mean, we have a whole bunch of people who call themselves African Americans that are Muslims. And if you ever really listen to what Muslims really believe about women, females, I'm just going to tell you. A Muslim male looks at a female as something that was created as another type of animal just to use. No different from a dog, a goat, a dairy cow, a sheep. They're not to be trusted. They can't love. They're to be used in any manner deemed possible because they're no better or even worse than an animal. Now, what did they describe? They described a human. Black's Law Dictionary, look up that word and it goes into human. And it says, check definition of monster.
Hey, man, I was in Saudi Arabia one time. I was over there for about 3 months. So I was going to have my Jet magazines come over there. Remember Jet magazine, right?
I remember Jet. Yeah.
And you remember the beauty of the week, right?
Yep.
It was always a fine sister in the centerfold of Jet. So I get my Jet magazines. The mail would deliver it to Saudi Arabia. When I got the magazine, the woman would be blacked out completely.
Wow.
But the page still in there. That's going to what you're saying about how they view women.
It's very, people need to understand. Our people need to understand. And I call ourselves our being of people because I don't believe that we should use that term human towards ourselves. You don't want to be a human after you find out what the definition of human is. Right? You just don't want to be. But people want to be us. The humans want to be us. And this is why every single quote unquote race on the planet, no matter what they say about us, they emulate us to the T. Right? So Stephanie Mills said it really well. She said they want soul music, they want rhythm and blues, they want all this music, jazz. They just don't want it from us. But in order for them not to get it from us, who do they have to learn it from? Us. This is the reason why they have sports, because they're learning how to play like us. This is the reason why they have all these genres of music and dance halls and all kinds of stuff, so that they can learn how to emulate the vibration of us. And when you notice, as soon as they feel like they don't need you anymore, they kick you in your pants and get rid of you. They throw you out. They start treating you like garbage. Because now what happened is that they done fed you all kinds of garbage to destroy the physical production of all of the energy that's inside of your body. They now have equaled you. And at any time that you talk about equaling us, that means that we would have to bring ourselves down so low that we're about maybe 2 centimeters off the ground. We're at dirt level right now. Anytime that you see one of our people getting beat to hell in a boxing match, we're at dirt level because they shouldn't be able to touch us. How do we know that? Just take a look at some of the old Muhammad Ali stuff. Take a look at some of the old,
Joe
some of the
Lewis.
Joe Lewis, any of them. Even Jackie Robinson, he wasn't the best baseball player in what you now call the Negro leagues. He was mediocre. And he went there and he was better than the best of them. How was Babe Ruth so good? Babe Ruth was so good because now that we found out, he was part quote unquote Aboriginal. Our Aboriginal. There's no such thing as a straight hair white Aboriginal. Aboriginal has 9 ether hair. That
So
9 ether hair is very important.
I want to pass this on to the audience because this is very important. You see all the terms, we were talking earlier, Black, African American, FBAs, Aboriginal, monkey, jigaboo, whatever they call you, you don't want to vibrate to that. You want to vibrate to what you've called yourself, what your grandfathers and grandmothers called themselves. Where did they live? What was that area called? That's who you are. All these other terms and names and nonsense that other people come up with to describe you, remember, you were here when they got here. All you have to do is look back to the 1920s. How do you fit in? What were your people doing? That information is at your fingertips. And for some reason, the Black African American don't want to have nothing to do with it. This is why you can be moved on to FBAs. Okay, Anu.
FBAs. So again, I talk to a lot of these African Americans. I want you to notice the way I'm talking now. I talk to a lot of these African Americans. I talk to a lot of these Black people. I talk to a lot of these so-called Negroes and all these other type of stuff and say, no, we've been here. One of the things you got to understand is that our forefathers was practicing the medicine they knew before the reset. And how do we know that? Because they kept us alive through the medicine that they knew. What was that? Well, there's a reason why they use red pepper flakes. There's a reason why they use black pepper flakes. There's a reason why they use real sea salt. There's a reason why they use a lot of these different herbs and stuff like that on your pork belly, on your meat, because they knew that the meat was so filled with parasitic entities that it can get into the body. So what they were doing was killing the parasites, not only in the meat that they were forced to eat, but the parasites that were in your body. We didn't get sick like them. But they knew the medicine unspoken. And it had to be unspoken because they were killing, destroying, maiming, raping, and doing everything that they can to try to wipe out the old knowledge. Somebody was telling me, yes, we're Native Americans, and we had teepees and this, that, and the other thing. Teepees. As soon as somebody talks to you about a Native American or American Indian living in a teepee, you should be extremely offended, because the type of buildings and the places that you lived in, you are the ones who built all of these different pyramids, which were energy sites. You are the ones that built all of these Romanesque type structures. You are the ones who built cities that were here for thousands of years before they even knew what a city was.
Don't forget the airships.
The airships, that's right, because there were all different types of, and I'm glad you said airships and not blimps, because airships, they use airships continuously, and they knew this in the 1700s, even in the 1600s. You'll see some pictures of it in the 1500s. When they started taking photographs in the 1700s, yes, I did say the 1700s, they started wiping out. They did photographic tricks by whiting out the skies. Photography, they were manipulating photography and whiting out the skies, which tells you something about the technology that they got from us, because they were
Let,
taking 3D pictures back in the 1700s.
let me add this too, and this is a question to the audience. I mean, if you think about it, the answer will come right to you. Do you honestly think this history is not taught no more, but there's some people who would know what it is? Do you honestly think Orville and Wilbur Wright came over here and invented an airplane? You really think that? Or do you think that technology had already been here? Think about it. You might not know now because you were told a story. And normally, when the Negro is told a story, he takes that to the grave. Okay, Anu.
When you talk about that question, now this is the funny thing about that. Over, I think it was at least 10 years before that, a black guy had invented some sort of a plane that was flying all over the place. This technology, everything that you see that was invented is already here. We just took the knowledge that we had, what that was given to us, what that we remembered, and put it back into play. Right? George Washington Carver, quote unquote, invented what? He invented the factory. No, he didn't invent the factory. He knew what the factories were. He knew how they worked. So he taught those animals, he taught those things about factories, about how to actually build things in mass production. So you got to remember, we built bricks by the billions, hundreds of billions, red bricks. And if you notice, sometimes when you go to a lot of these different places, you might see a brick that has this term electricity on it. That's because we had a whole entire electrical network around the Americas, including underground, that operated a free energy system.
Free.
Free energy system. And these tunnels that they're saying that they're building, these tunnels are already there. They are just finding them, founded. Everything is founded by them. So they found you here. They found our people here. And they also found all of these buildings. New York City was here for hundreds of years, if not thousands, before they even came here. Boston. You should see the first picture of Boston before they burnt it up. That city was built out all at one time. And I'm starting to think our method of building wasn't one building at a time. It was raising everything up at one time because of how intricately and how smoothly everything actually really went. And I also don't believe now, after studying some of the World's Fair, especially the one in Chicago, which had a temple that looked like a lot of these temples in Egypt. Makes you wonder if they actually took the temples here and replaced them over there in Egypt, because if you know, a lot of these temples in Egypt were dissected and then rebuilt. But what we have with the old buildings over here is we have pictures when they were first putting everything together, and the coloring was different. It wasn't pure white. I think they just added the white just to make things look clean. But we, as beings of people, need to understand who and what we are. And I really do mean who and what we are. And the power upon which generates within inside of us. We are the oldest being of people on the so-called planet. There is no genetic makeup anywhere on this planet older than us as beings of people. Now, I don't know about, somebody might talk about the roach or some little whatever. I don't know about any of that stuff, but I know about genetics of beings of people that have an actual thought process. Us, walk. We are the oldest.
And if you know anything about people, one of the main things that people do is move around. They don't stay in one spot. They're always going and coming, especially the men. And remember, before borders was invented or borders were put up that limited your movement, you were all over the place. North America and South America are connected. It's one continent. Central America is part of the Americas. The Caribbean is part of the Americas. Everything is just like Africa, Asia, and Europe are connected. You can walk to Africa from Europe. You can walk to Africa from Russia. You can walk to Africa from China. There, it's another side. It's another side. It's a whole completely different side of this side. All I got to do is look at a map and it tells you. And when you look at what the Americas are, they're the soul people. They're the rich soul. That's what America means. You break it down, America means rich soul. Rico, rich, soul. That's what it means, rich soul. And when you go around the world and you ask immigrants coming over here, well, who are the soul people? What does it mean by soul? They always point to you. Always. Just like he was saying about the music. Everybody want to copy you. Your music is the biggest selling. Everybody wants you. And so as we're going to this uh, FBA, keep that in mind. You're not what other some new fangled name somebody's coming up with. That's not you. You are connected to people like Anu was saying, was building structures and cities all over the place. That's who you are. Those people didn't call themselves black. Those people didn't call themselves African American. Those people didn't call themselves FBAs. They called themselves what they were. Your job is to find out what the people call themselves. Okay, Anu.
Yeah, and one of the first things when we met, you told me that our one of our original names were oh, I forgot the name that you used.
Well, now it's just this simple, and nobody got no excuse. So when people come up talking about we and then, I'll be like, well, who are your people? Where they live? Because it's all over. Because that's what's cool about us. We don't we leave stuff for our people. We don't just we know the life goes on. We know that we continue on. We know that we'll be here again. We know that we're going to keep having children. Now that's under attack. And Negroes are proud of it.
Well, Negroes, Black people, African Americans, you can understand one thing about them right now, especially after 2020 and all those people who took the shot. I had warned people about this a very long time ago that if you get the shot, the Supreme Court already said that if your body turns into 50% of more what you were shot up with, you're no longer in control of your own body. You don't own your body anymore. The corporation does, whoever invented or gave you that shot. And we have a lot of people right now that are actually changing into other species of beings because of what they've been shot up with. Now, this is very sensitive, and a lot of people don't want to talk about it.
Why do you
But
think that's so? Why do you think that they don't want to talk about it?
well, they don't want to talk about it because they, again, this creates a really serious separation, even if you're indigenous. Oh, we all want to live together. We want to do this together. Well, you want to know what? In order for us to be able to have beings of people, they can't be infected with something that's
Right,
going to change the very nature of what they are.
right,
Right? I mean, you got to remember the reason why we have O positive, O negative. The reason why we have that was because they tried this one time before and there was a correction. Now, God only knows how long that correction took to get that out of our system, but we developed an antibody to destroy whatever was trying to destroy us. And before they were able to give this shot, before the 90s, they were unable to get inside of the cell of an aboriginal copper colored being. Why is that? Because your melanin, your carbon that surrounds every single one of your cells, they couldn't get in there. They couldn't splice into it. Every time they tried to get into your cell, they couldn't do it. So they couldn't manipulate you. So geneticists believe the reason why they came up with white skin was so that they would be better able to get into the cell. Now, the white skin and the white cell is a sulfuric melanin, which is oxygenated and has to be created that way. There's nothing natural in the nature system that would create that type of melanin. Your melanin, neomelanin, theromelanin, whatever you want to call it, our melanin is made differently from their melanin. This is the reason why you're able to contain what you're able to contain, which is a soul. This is why your muscle fibers are different. Your cellular makeup is different. The way that you
Sanu,
ingest sun is different.
Sanu.
It's,
Yeah, man.
you're a different being of people. This is the reason why they used to call us, those of us that were running around and they were seeing us, they used to call us the new people, or the Native Americans used to call us people who were different, strange people. They're not like us type people. No, we're not. We didn't just get here. But that's the reason why people don't want to talk about this shot business, is because it's actually changing the very dynamics of being of what you are. It's changing you into something different than a copper-colored being. And they're trying to get more of us into that by foods and all kinds of other stuff. But again, there are ways for our being of people to be able to recover, and that's you have to be able to detox. You got to detox this stuff from your system.
So everything in the food now is bioengineered. Can
Most
you
of the
explain
stuff.
that?
Yeah, most of the stuff is bioengineered. And you got to watch everything, because a lot of it is to, one, break down your cellular structure to make you sick. Sick meaning they're able to inject. You just don't get sick out of nowhere. A sickness has to be introduced into your body. Your body just doesn't come up with the sickness. This is the reason why they got to get those things inside you. They got to get that in you, right? And once that's in you, they have retroviruses that are attached to that. Also, they have chromium, nickel. They have aluminum, and a lot of these things, right? And now they have a lot of these little microplastics and all kinds of other stuff that they have. And when once your body gets to a point as to where it can't protect itself, you are sick. And when you go to a doctor, the doctor says, "Oh, your vitals are low," or this, that, and the other thing. You got to remember that you're 3 to 10 times more dense than a normal human being. So, in other words, it's like Thor. You're like Thor. And these people like just normal people walking around. When Thor gets sick and he's worse than a regular human, that means that everything about him, all of what he has inside of him is so low that he is depleted of almost all of his energy. And that's how they want to get you. They need you depleted in order for you not to be able to protect what's inside of you. Right? So your minerals are 3, 4, 5 times more dense. Your skin, 3, 4, 5 times more dense. Your heart is stronger. Right? So all the things that they say, you got to remember, their medicine is based on their genetics, not on ours. Not on ours. We have
So,
we have melanin, carbon, we have actual carbon. They have a synthetic melanin.
so do you think that's going to be a problem moving forward? Because you have a lot of melanin enriched or melanin filled people that have taken the people who have coming over here. I'm not just talking about lately. I'm talking about as far back as the 1800s. We have a lot of melanin rich people that have taken these people in and picked up their ways of doing things, picked up their ways of living, picked up their ways of seeing the world. We have a whole cadre of melanin rich people who are with that, and they're not with what their people have put out or who their people are. How do you think that's going to affect us in the future?
Well, it's already affecting this, and you can see that it's a serious mental issue. And again, people are going to get upset about this as well, but it is what it is. But this mental issue is psychotic to the point as to where it really needs to be addressed through lots of therapy. The fact of the matter that a lot of our women cannot wear their hair naturally, and they got to wear somebody else's hair, another race's hair. That's a 6 ether, even a 5 ether hair over their 9 ether being hair. It's already affected us. You got men running around talking about their women. They don't know what they are and all this other type stuff. They don't know, they don't know how to be men. They don't know how to treat women like women.
So how
Right?
do you think that how do you think that's going to affect? What do you see happen, or you saying we're seeing it now?
That's right. It's already been. I mean, since the first millionaire that we had was a woman who trained everybody how to conk their hair, straighten their hair. Why would you want to straighten your hair? And you see this a lot in all these old photos, all these people with straightened hair. Why would somebody with a naturally superior hair want to bringing it from a 9 ether way down to a 6 ether hair being? Because there's something psychologically wrong with you. There's something wrong with the mentality there. And that mentality's been eating us up. And, I mean, the wig industry, there's times when you got to wear a wig. You might get sick. You might have this going on with your hair, whatever the situation. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about someone who cannot go outside without one of these wigs on. I mean, you got these politicians, these women politicians walking around with these wigs on, and everybody's looking like they have white hair. They have not 6 ether hair. It's not even white hair. It's 6 ether hair. It's hair lower than what they are as beings of people. And that's what they're promoting. It's a mentality. And
But
that's
don't you
because,
see? But don't you see? Do okay? You're absolutely right. Because I always said, why don't you just, when your people die, just shave their heads, and take their hair and use that as hair if you're going to do that. And I always get laughed and mocked at until I say that's what these people are doing other places, cutting their hair and sending it over to you to place it on top of your hair. We have Miss Lisa Cypress, on the line. She came to join us. How you doing, Lisa?
Let me see if my mic works. Hello,
Oh,
Kayuk.
hey, how you doing?
Hey, Anu. I thought that was your voice. I thought I recognized you. Good to hear from you.
Good to hear from you too.
Thanks for having
And
me, Terry.
this is one of the
Oh,
great people that people need to really listen to as well, because not only is she doing her part, not only is she looking the part, but she's being what she's supposed to be. It's just wonderful to be able to know people like her.
yes, and please check her out and check out the moves she's making because we all have to make those same type of move. And it's really got to understand where we are and what we're looking at and just stop paying attention to what you're being shown through a camera. Every single last one of us are here for a reason. You better find out what that reason is and get busy. How you been doing, Lise? Where'd she go? But anyway, Anu, back to what you were saying.
Yeah, no, it's people need to check their souls. People need to begin to start looking deep inside of them. Everybody's looking for a movement to join or this, that, or the other thing. What you need to do now is reground yourself and become the being that you're supposed to be, and then you'll be able to move forward. Stop moving around in circles. Stop joining, things that are going to take you nowhere, and start being, like you said, the being that you're supposed to be. And it's just amazing how people are constantly. I mean, you got these so-called black people getting butt lifts. Yeah, yeah, come on. I, I mean, it's a mental illness. Makeup, and I got nothing against makeup, but makeup, I don't believe was first originally for our people. That was made to dress up the dead. Everything we do is encouraged by another being of people that are not even on sixth ether being level. We're nine ether beings. We need to begin to start acting that way, behaving that way,
Oh,
being that way.
so what you're saying, because this it looks like this change is taking place. Everybody's on it, this FBA thing. What do we expect to see in the near future, and how will they be unleashed on the populace?
Well, first of all, you got to remember they don't expect a lot of these people to be here by 2030. They don't expect a lot of people to be here by 2030. China did its part. China had 1.3 billion people going into 2017. They got approximately maybe 400 million people left. China. Streets are empty.
You
Empty.
know, I've been seeing that they have whole towns empty in China.
Gone. You think what they're doing in Gaza is the first time that they went and did something like that? No. This is what they did to our being of people when they came here. They're just doing what their masters have done. What you see in Gaza is what every single one of our communities look like when they were done. Even worse, because when you take a look at Death Valley, before they erased the pictures, you can see a lot of places where there were bombs that were just dropped and just smashed and blew away large swaths of towns. Cahokia. Cahokia most likely is no different from what you would see over there in the pyramids in Egypt. It's probably bigger. They started digging in that stuff, and what did they do there? They stopped because they knew who did what. They don't want you to know who you are. They have not only distorted our own history because they had to, but they diverted our history in our mind into some place where we can't even fathom where we even came from. But we
To
do know what the club is.
to add on what Anu was saying, and he put it eloquently when he said the diverted the attention. So he was just talking about Cahokia. Right down the street from Cahokia is the St. Louis Arch. As a matter of fact, you can see Cahokia from the St. Louis Arch. So the St. Louis Arch is a diversion away from Cahokia. It's right there, but it's a diversion away from it. That's the kind of stuff, that's how many of us are trained. Because remember, they don't teach you anything, they train you to be. They train you to be a foundational Black American. And if you say it over and over and over again, eventually you will be it. Go ahead, Anu.
Yeah, and when you talk about like places like Cahokia, one of the things that you find out when you really start studying it is that that whole entire St. Louis area was Cahokia. There were millions of people that were able to get there. It was a central point. And some people even say that that was the hub of the whole entire civilization for the Americas, maybe even for the world.
And you want to know why? One example, Mississippi River.
That's right.
Mississippi River. And we all know the rivers are highways. And this is why I say, do some genealogy on yourself. You will find out that your people are from places like this. This is what they did. Just don't call yourself Black because somebody else called you that. Call yourself what your people called themselves. And I know many of you can hear those spirits calling, those souls calling. That's another thing you have that other people don't have. They'll tell you you crazy. I know you hear them souls calling you. Okay, I do.
Yeah, I mean, you when Lisa comes back on, if she's able to, I mean, it's over there on that side of Virginia where she's gaining her Aboriginal Indigenous rights back over there, getting her land, her property back from her people, where the Accomax are. When I took a look around there, and when you drive around a lot, you see a lot of old abandoned buildings up against the shoreline, buried into the shoreline. Which now you know that there was a whole entire civilization over there as well that was much, much more than what they actually say it is. And this is the reason why they took it away from them. Because anywhere we are that can show what we're all about, they have to take it away. That's why they took the Grand Canyon away. Because the Grand Canyon showed us a lot of stuff of who and what we are. They actually also gave the Grand Canyon to a what is it? Native American group over there. They're out of New York, Long Island, New York, and they now own part of the Grand Canyon, which was called Negro Canyon or something like that, over there. Won't allow us to go over there at all. So,
And let me
yep.
just say this, and it's not the point that they don't allow us. We don't care. That's not an importance. And another thing to add on when he was talking about the Accomax, when you go to where your people are from, you'll get the feeling like you just seen the Grand Canyon for the first time, like you see the shorelines of Virginia the first time, what these people were seeing when they came in, Niagara Falls. When you see these places, the stunning places, you're in awe. And it's thousands of places across America like that. That's you. But you will call yourself an African American before you call yourself that. That's how I say minds are being lost. And what's going on in the future, this FBA, they're taking you a place. When you get there, don't complain because now you all happy jumping up and down. When you get to the place where they're taking you, Just enjoy your stay. Okay, I knew I'm done. Lisa, you back?
Is she back?
Yeah,
No.
I'm here. I'm here. I just had it on mute.
Oh,
I was.
okay.
It was good to let Anu cook. He's cooking, man. Let him cook.
Go ahead and cook, homie.
Well, I mean, you just take a look at all the things that we are, and when we come down and we begin to start giving ourselves names, we'll find out that there's a name that they never talk about, which is Tamaria. A name that the so-called Kemites were using for tens of thousands of years, calling where we live Tamaria, the land that we love, Tamaria. And when they begin to start giving you, because they love to name things, they love to rename just about everything they come in contact with, because they're trying to do what they were taught in Genesis. But when you know who you are, a lot of that stuff starts to wear a bit thin. Why wouldn't you tell us? They said that they never knew what our name was, and that America was named by some guy named America Excobuti, whatever that guy's name was supposed to be. Wasn't even his real name. Discovered by a guy that was Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus wasn't even his name. In fact, now what they're saying is that the term Columbus meant destroyer or something like that. Tamaria. Tamarians.
Yeah, they also though say that it was that we were called Amérique.
That's right.
And then actually when they said that when they arrived, which they arrived in Central America, they thought it was like the Garden of Eden, right?
That's right.
It was called, that's the actual, that's one of the center of Amérique, supposedly Central America's like the center of Amérique. But it was, they don't really see, they're not that bright. They they kind of got a little bit slicker with time, but they're not that bright. Just like they call it Virginia, but when it was Vigina. Vigina was the empress that did all the patents and had the huge territory from Canada down to Alabama. It was Vingina. So, and then they try to say Wingina, Vingina, but that whatever it's Wingina or Vingina, they try to attribute to that being a man. That clearly doesn't. That's not a man's name. Vingina,
And let me just add this, Lisa. Remember when she's talking like a long time ago. So these places that they drew line through and made it where you have to go use passports, that wasn't set up yet. These people lived in territories. So when she say down from Canada to Alabama, those hadn't existed yet. What the people that they were territories. It wasn't states. It's where the people lived. People, a whole swath of people lived from what you now call Alabama and Georgia. It wasn't no Alabama and Georgia. The people lived, in territories. You have to have that in mind. You'll be less confused.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, depending on which space of time you're looking at, is going to be a different people. Caillou, Zena. It's going to be a lot of different names depending on how far back you go. And just like they found mastodon head, caucus in the Chesapeake Bay with spears with Clovis points around it. We know that predates the Mayans and the Olmecs by tens of thousands of years. Like we don't even realize. See, we always looking for somebody else that somebody told us about. But if you just keep looking back in your territory, you're gonna find your ancients. You know what I mean? They hide it, and they have it really well hidden now. But as we start to work and demand, we just got to keep scratching at it. Even AI, if you bully AI will cough it up. Like because the information is in the databases, in the back databases. They got it. But their AI is not programmed to give you. They give you what's on Wikipedia. That's why they put this together, this fake dictionary, Wikipedia, where people can put in there where a bunch of Europeans in England put in whatever they want. It's controlled by a bunch of weirdos, bunch of nerds in England, because a bunch of nerds in England control us, everything that goes on over here. So there's that. But the reality is, in your own family, in your own bloodline, lies a rich history of your own. We don't have to go back to some other ancient people. You are the ancient people. You are right where you stand, whether it's Alabama or Virginia or Arkansas. You are that ancient people, and that ancient people that you are has a very rich history. You don't have to look to the Olmecs, because why do you got to look for the Olmecs? You are the Olmec of your territory, right? They're there. They have that's a whole long far away from where you are now. And although there weren't borders and we traveled back and forth, you are you, and you have a very rich history of your own. It's just about digging it up. And just like a brother I talked to the other night, I mean, once he started digging in Alabama, they had covered up a lot of the ancient names of the nations. But once we start looking, like Carrie says, into the rivers and the names of the different territories, they started saying that his people were really the people's names reflected the towns' names. It was towns, you know what I mean? The towns had our indigenous names before they said Cherokee and Creek. There were other names before that, because he was stuck on being a Cherokee, stuck on being a Creek. Those are government created names. They use that to hijack your identity, just like they calling us Powhatan. That's a hijack name. Powhatan was a brother. He was one of us Accomack. Okay. But he's not. It's not what it is. That's not what we are. We're the Accomack or the Akamaticus or the Comac or the Agamog. We have different names depending on where we are and the time we're looking at. So that's the kind of thing we have to kind of unearth for ourselves. Nobody's gonna, give that to you. You just have to, you got to dig a little. I close my mic, y'all.
And let me say, and this is what I'm saying, what you call yourself, all the names Lisa was saying, what you call yourself that instead of Black. Call yourself that instead of African American. Call yourself that instead of foundational Black American. Call yourself who you are. It's that simple. And somehow the Black African American, they get into all these names somebody have gave you. The people that Lisa just named, they didn't introduce themselves as Black. They didn't introduce themselves as African American. They didn't introduce themselves as foundational Black Americans. They had something that they came up with, that they built, that they thought about, that they put their blood, sweat, and tears into. You just gonna let somebody come and say your name is Bob and you start calling yourself Bob? That's what the African American does. That's what Black people do. That's what foundational Black Americans do. What do you say? I don't know.
I asked one question. And I said, well, ask the oldest member of your family, when was the first time they met an African American? And the look that you get on the face of that person is a blank stare. Because the African American is a made up term that was created back in what? 1988, 89. There was no such thing as an African American before then. And that's why I brought up that term white. Even tribal. There's no such thing until they created that term as a privileged term in 1620, 1630. By 1650, it took hold. And I don't think it became a race until the 70s, white. The word tribe didn't exist either. So when you hear Lisa and Carrie and they're telling you, take a look at your family names, because those are the names of the towns upon which you're associated in. That's very true. Because they go around saying all these tribes, Do you live? I come from New York City or Hempstead, or I mean, there's a lot of indigenous names of cities where I come from. But a lot of these towns that you look at, are those tribes that the town that you're in now, or do you call it a town? Call it a city? Louisiana or whatever you want to call it, Alabama or whatever. Is that an actual large territory? And then mixed in there are the names of all the different that's associated with that territory, their responsibility. People have to understand that there's got to be a separation now, because at this late date, you might not be waking up any more people. They are what they are. I mean, they may have to wake up when they die and come back. But at this point right now, there's got to be a separation. People need to understand that if you're Black, African American, whatever other made up term that you are, that's where you live now. That's just what you are. Go back to that place where you call African American, and find your home. Once we're truly situated, we'll offer boats or whatever, submarine, whatever we have to get you over there for you to find whatever you need to find. But dealing with these kind of people right now, it's done. We must concentrate wholly on who and what we are and move forward. And they have to just be what that movie said, left behind. They're in this system. This system was not made for us. We're the only people on the face of the earth that can actually get out of the system. We are the key. We are the key. We are the genetic key of freeing everything in this paradigm. We are the correction. We are the judges. We are the only beings of people that can actually move everything forward. They are stuck in time. And what they're trying to do through CERN and a lot of these other things, get us to be stuck in time as well. And what I'm saying to you now, don't become a non-player character, NPC. Because a lot of people now that you're dealing with are exactly that. They're there to just waste your damn time. Excuse my language. They're just there to waste your time. Because you can talk to them for an hour, 2 hours. And then after the whole entire conversation, and they're saying that they understand everything, they'll go right back into what they were into in the beginning of the conversation. I'll give a suggestion to every single person listening to this program, no matter when you turn it on. Look up on YouTube, guy talking to NPC in a game. Then you'll have an understanding of what you're dealing with when you're walking around there in the streets. When you're trying to gather people to make a movement or trying to do something. These people have no interest in anything that you're doing. And at this late date, if you're calling yourself an African American, at one point we had an excuse and said, well, we just didn't know. We just didn't know. Well, that excuse cannot be done anymore. Because back in the 90s, 80s, and even in the 70s, 60s, they were talking about the new power generation. They were talking about star children. They were talking about the generation that is now. We are that generation that they were talking about. We are them. Star children are not for our people. Star children are for those who are finally getting themselves attached to an energy that they never had access to before. All of our children that are born in the Aboriginal sense of the word has access to it. We're naturally that way. That's why we're more dense. That's why we have carbon. That's why we have souls. These people who gave up their right to be whatever they are, that they're no longer an active player in this paradigm. They're a non-player character. So when you begin to start seeing all of these things happening in marches and just that and the other thing, these are non-player characters doing what the system is telling them what to do. Other people are just programmed. They're just programmed, and they're probably more dangerous people, because now you have programs that have your abilities that they're using to help with their programming. You remember the Rockefellers put out this thing. They said that we're going to be dreaming a dream, and we're going to have them dream a dream within our dream so that they can build what we're dreaming.
One more time.
We're going to dream a dream, and we're going to have them dream a dream within our dream to help build what we're building. In other words, everything that they're building, they cannot do it by themselves. They need your energy.
Well, the new man, I want to thank you for hanging out with us today and sharing that knowledge with us. I'm sure a lot of people got a lot of it out of it. Didn't you guys? Hit one if you learned something today. I appreciate you coming on, brother, and sharing with us.
I appreciate you. I appreciate Lisa. I appreciate Zena. I appreciate the Akamax. I appreciate everyone who's out there doing something real, because this is the only way that we're going to be able to move forward. Check your being. Make sure you're still with the living and that you're not an NPC, non-player character. And if people find themselves that they are an entity still, make sure that the first question that you meet somebody, if you're going to date them or whatever the situation is to find out if they have an internal dialogue. So do you talk to yourself? Do you think to yourself? Because if they don't, they can't do anything for you. Move on. And that's what we need to do with these African Americans, foundational Black Americans, and any other type of whatever you want to call yourselves. It's at the point now, we as beings of people need to move on.
It also saves you a lot of energy too. Because when you talk to these people, like you said, they're non-player entities. You're wasting your energy talking to them. And at this time coming up, especially as we move forward, you're going to need all the energy. Don't waste none of it. And when you communicate with these people, you're wasting your energy because they're not getting it. So, well, Anu, thank you for hanging out with us, brother. I'm going to talk to you a little later on, okay?
All right. Peace be upon you all.
Okay. Lisa, any final words or thoughts you want to share before you bounce?
I'm good. I'm ready to go.
Okay, so you guys, thanks for hanging out with us today. We'll be on a little later on. We'll be on a little later on in the week with some more information. Got some cool stuff coming up. So thank you guys, and you guys have a good day. Peace.
Mahalo.
I know.